We have walked the plague-choked streets of London. We have watched bodies pile in the churchyards of medieval England. Felt the terror that entered entire villages in 1348. We have seen the horrors of the Black Death, the buboes, the prayers that went unanswered, the carts that came at midnight for the dead. But today, the nightmare crosses the ocean. It is August 1793, and the sun rises over the Delaware River, not with the promise of a new day, but with the weight of a curse. The air itself feels wrong, thick, almost liquid, as if you could drown just by breathing. On the Philadelphia waterfront, the morning already shimmers with heat that will not break for weeks. The temperature has been climbing relentlessly since July, turning the capital of the young United States into a furnace. There is no breeze. There is no relief. There is only the heat pressing down like a physical weight. Walk with me down to the docks. Smell that? Beneath the salt and tar, there's something sweeter, more sinister. Rotting coffee beans. Hundreds of barrels spoiled in the August sun. Their contents fermenting into a dark, foul syrup that seeps between the cobblestones. The water in the port doesn't move. It sits stagnant, breeding. The refugees from Sandang have been arriving for months now, fleeing their own revolution, bringing with them nothing but the clothes on their backs and something invisible, something that thrives in this oppressive heat. The dock workers avoid certain wharves now. They've seen the bodies being carried off the ships. Passengers who were healthy when they departed Haiti, dead before they reached Pennsylvania soil. But Philadelphia is too busy, too confident, too important to stop and worry about a few sick sailors. The sun climbs higher. The heat presses down like a hand on your chest. And somewhere in the warren of wooden houses and narrow alleys, the first victim of the day is already burning with fever. Philadelphia in 1793 isn't just any city. It is the city, the capital of the United States, the Athens of America. George Washington himself walks these streets, conducting the business of a nation barely 10 years old. Congress meets here. This is a city that believes it has left behind the filth and superstition of the old world. But walk down any side street away from the grand thoroughfares and you'll find the truth. The gutters overflow with sewage. Human waste mixing with animal waste. All of it baking in the August sun into a toxic soup. Pigs root through garbage that piles in alleys. The city's water supply comes from wells sitting mere feet from cesspits and burial grounds. The refugees keep arriving from Sand, fleeing revolution. The merchants see only business opportunities, cheap labor, new trade connections. They don't see what's breeding in the water barrels on those ships, in the cisterns behind houses, in every forgotten bucket across the city. The mosquitoes are everywhere, but mosquitoes are always everywhere in summer. Nothing to worry about. The temperature climbs past 90 degrees. The city's arrogance is absolute. And in darkened bedrooms across Philadelphia, people are beginning to feel cold despite the heat. The first symptom, the one that means it's already too late. The color comes first. That's what separates this plague from the nightmare that stalked medieval London. No buboes swelling in the groin and armpits. Instead, the victims turn yellow. It starts in the eyes, the whites taking on a sickly jaundiced hue that spreads across the skin like a stain. Within hours, the afflicted look as though they've been painted with sulfur and bile. The sun beats down on yellow skin under yellow skies, and the city begins to understand that something is catastrophically wrong. Dr. Benjamin Rush moves through the streets like a general, surveying a battlefield he's already losing. A signer of the Declaration. He has become Philadelphia's frontline soldier against an enemy. He doesn't understand his treatment. The same weapon doctors have wielded for centuries. Bloodletting. Open the vein. Let the corrupt humors drain away. 10 ounces. 20, 30. Some patients are bled 4 times a day until they are as pale as ghosts. Until they're too weak to even vomit. And the vomiting, God, the vomiting, this is where the yellow gives way to black. The fever climbs so high it cooks the blood in the stomach, and what comes up is the color of coffee grounds, of old sin, of death itself. The black vomit becomes the mark of the condemned. Once you see it, you know, 24 hours, maybe 48 if you're strong, but the outcome is inevitable. The heat doesn't break. The temperature at 2 o'clock in the afternoon feels like it might crack the sky open, and people start to change. Your neighbor, who you've known for 10 years, crosses the street when she sees you coming. Children are kept inside, away from playmates. Every cough becomes a potential death sentence. The social fabric that holds civilization together begins to fray. The coffin makers can't keep up with demand. The gravediggers work through the night. And Dr. Rush bleeds another patient and another. Convinced that if he can just find the right balance, he can turn the tide. He can't. Nobody can. The invisible army of mosquitoes continues its work, and then the unthinkable happens. The government flees. President George Washington, the man who crossed the Delaware, who endured Valley Forge, leaves Philadelphia, not in the night, not in secret, but openly, loading his belongings onto carriages and departing for Mount Vernon. Congress adjourns indefinitely. Cabinet members scatter to country estates. The machinery of the young republic simply abandons the capital. The message is clear. If the leaders won't stay, why should anyone else? Those with means follow Washington's example, creating an exodus that clogs the roads leading out of the city. Wealthy families pile furniture and valuables onto wagons, fleeing toward imagined safety. But the surrounding townships aren't stupid. They set up armed checkpoints, turning away anyone who looks even slightly unwell. Anyone who might bring the plague to their doors. Philadelphia's refugees camp in fields, die in ditches, discover that the fever traveled with them in their blood. For those left behind, the poor, the enslaved, those with nowhere to run, the city transforms into something from a nightmare older than America itself. The sound that echoes through the streets at night is one that would be immediately recognized by anyone who survived 1348 London, the rattle and creak of deaths on cobblestones. Bring out your dead. The cry carries through the darkness, though here it's muffled, less formal than it was in medieval England. But the meaning is the same. Bodies are stacked like cordwood. Entire families are gone. Mother, father, children, all claimed within days of each other. The dead lie in their beds for days because there's no one left to carry them out. Houses are marked with chalk or paint. Warnings to stay away, though by now everyone knows which homes harbor death. You can smell it from the street. The heat is monstrous. The city has become a pressure cooker of decay and terror. At night, the temperature barely drops and the fevered victims thrash in sweat-soaked sheets, calling for water that no one dares bring them. The bravest souls, the free African society, who step forward when everyone else has run, move through the streets with vinegar-soaked cloths pressed to their faces, doing the work of angels and gravediggers simultaneously. It ends the way these things always end, not with human intervention, but with nature's mercy. October arrives, and with it, finally, a break in the heat. And on the morning of October 27th, Philadelphia wakes to frost glittering on the cobblestones. The first hard freeze of autumn. Within days, the Eisen fever begins to recede. Within weeks, the crisis is over. They won't know for another 100 years that what saved them was the death of the mosquitoes. That the frost killed the invisible enemy more efficiently than Dr. Rush's bloodletting ever could. They credit divine intervention, the changing winds, natural providence. By November, 10% of the capital had been buried in the earth. 5,000 souls in a city of 50,000. 1 in 10 gone. The toll proportionally rivals what the Black Death achieved in medieval England. The government returns. Washington moves back. Congress reconvenes. The streets are scrubbed with lime. The city collectively decides to forget, to move forward, to pretend it was all some temporary aberration. But the survivors remember. They remember the yellow skin and the black vomit. They remember the sound of the death carts. They remember how quickly the Athens of America became another plague city, no different from the festering streets of medieval London that we began this journey with. Just as the Great Fire cleansed London in 1666, the frost saved Philadelphia in 1793, the American Black Death lasted only 3 months, but it proved that the New World was not immune to the Old World's nightmares. The plague crossed the ocean and it thrived in the land of the free. If you want to see where this nightmare began, click here to watch our journey through the Black Death of 1348. Or if you want to witness the filthiest city in history, the place where disease was a constant companion, click here. Because the truth is, the plague never really left us. It just changed its name, crossed an ocean, and waited for the perfect summer to strike again. The heat always returns. And when it does,